Hello and welcome to Moneylife. This is Sucheta Dalal. Today we are discussing something very interesting. When truth is stranger than fiction, isn't it easy to believe rumors, especially in the context of the capital market and share prices of companies and what kind of mischief they're up to? So last week, something just shook up the market. Started sometime in the evening, it was 14th December, and suddenly on social media one began to get messages saying, do you believe this? What it was is a hitherto unknown website, apparently belonging to a Australian group, which had put out a stunning story. It said that Axis Bank had lent an astonishing 44,000 crore to the Shrey group, and essentially the allegations were about the Shrey group of Calcutta and the Kanoria brothers, and it said that they had found multiple ways in which to extract money from people. Obviously the numbers were stunning, hard to believe. By next morning my WhatsApp messages were flooded. 20-30 people sending the same thing over and over again and saying, do you believe this? Everyone was shaken up, banks were about to open, people wanted to know, what do you do? We've had banks closing overnight, we've had stock prices crashing, so people were worried. Now, what happened is that both Axis Bank and Shrey issued very strong denials. I don't think they did it on their own. We, of course, tried to reach out to the regulators. SEBI, as always, stunningly silent. RBI, far more proactive. And I think it's because of the RBI intervention that quite early in the morning at around 10, there was a strong denial sent out on social media by Axis Bank. Ultimately, it was a big storm in a teacup because the market seemed to indicate, and I say market as a reflection of people's belief or disbelief in this big exclusive expose that had come out. Nobody seemed to believe it. Now, is it okay not to believe it? I don't know. So I'm going to put forward some facts and what happens in the market and situations when it comes to rumors like this. Let's go over it one by one. Okay. To understand the situation, let's go back a little bit and look at what happens with rumors. So in the 90s, this used to happen quite often. Dr. Manmohan Singh was seen as the architect of India's reforms. That is what was fueling a big bull market. And every once in a while, there would be rumors that he's resigned or he's not well, and the market would crash for a while before things were corrected because there used to be clarifications. Twice in the last few weekends, rumors start on Saturday. There have been wild rumors going on the WhatsApp circuit about a very well-known industrialist not being well and how serious he is. This used to worry people because his company has a huge weightage in the popular stock indices. Since the group is quite savvy, very quietly a video or photographs would get released and all would be well Monday morning. But you would agree that this is a volatile situation. And rumors can, in the days of algo trading, when tens of thousands of trades are executed in the blink of an eyelid, this can be dangerous. And again, look at how we've moved in terms of policymakers. Okay, we had a time when under P. Chidambaram, every blip, every little reaction of foreign institutional investors would have him out making statements, would persuade regulators to come out and say things. In fact, when there was a fat finger trade and the exchange had to close down, he even asked the NSE to restart without even bothering about SEBI. I think that was highly excessive, one end of the pendulum. Now the pendulum seems to have swung to the other side, where it appears to us the finance minister couldn't care less. The market once again in a relentless bull run, seemingly unconcerned about fundamentals and the havoc caused by the COVID pandemic. So it just goes up, up and up. You have never a regulator speaking out in spite of 18 broker defaults, four odd closures, voluntary closures. You have mutual fund problems, you've had big NBFC closures, but never once has the regulator come out and spoken. There's no reassurance. So the market essentially is left to its own devices to make what it does out of rumors and decide what they need to do. Now, let's examine the 14th December rumor, which was by a website called scamsbreaking.com, unusual name. And we did a little bit of homework, nobody had ever heard about it before, and it appears that it is owned by an Australian company. The website seems really focused on India. We don't know why this Australian company is so interested in India. Now, I want to read out what this website says about itself. Okay, it's important that I read it out. So, it belongs to a company called International Media Corporation, and here's its claim, and I quote, "It calls itself one of the most reliable, fearless, exclusive, ampersand and investigative news portals which carries the most exclusive and sensational stories for the purpose to eradicate the spread of false information and scams around the globe by researching and telling stories which no one dares to explore." As you can see, English is not its strong point, but the website is in English. Be that as it may, the name, as it indicates, is supposed to be about scams. Not everything on the website is about scams. High on hyperbole, rather low on facts, tediously repetitive, not enough proof even in this big breaking story. So it claims that it plans to expose 20 companies, and the SRE group of the Canorias is one of them. For your information, SRE has three main companies: SRE Infrastructure Finance Limited, SRE Equipment Finance, and India Park Corporation. Now, the big allegation here is 16,000 crores have been siphoned off through related party transactions to companies that are controlled by the SRE group. It alleges that a public trust called the Power Trust, controlled by the SRE, is again controlled kind of Benami by employees, retainers, lawyers of the SRE group, and even corporate social responsibility funds have been diverted towards it. There are lots of transactions going in and out of this trust. This is something that the RBI will investigate. Now, before we go on to more allegations, let's remember that there are charges against SRE is not unusual, because RBI itself in November has ordered a special audit or a forensic audit. Now, this website, Scams Breaking, has a list of companies which it says it's dug out through a forensic audit, which it claims are related to the SRE group. I can name some names, you can look it up on our website, but it's got names like Bhaskar Silicon, subsidiary of Environ Energy Corporation, it's got Bharat Road Networks, it's got Sahaji Village, it's got Rural Innovation Labs Private Limited, Swayambhu Natural Resources, Vara Technologies, Bharat Nirman Fund promoted by the Kanoria brothers, Victor Buildwell, SRE Alternate Trust, Ativo Economic Zone Private Limited, iLog Ports Private Limited, Predicate Consultants. Now, why am I naming them? Because the website says large amounts of money, in some cases thousands of crores, in some cases hundreds of crores, have been siphoned through these companies. So money moves in and out. This big 16,000 crore number is supposed to be through the related party transactions. There is no clear, though they call it a forensic audit, there is no clear linkage of how the funds flowed from SRE groups or the borrowings or bank money into these companies, or what happened to it, or how it went into private hands, which is what is the bottom line claim. Until RBI does its audit, we don't know whether any of this is true. The big issue, of course, was 44,000 crores, which it claims Axis Bank provided without due diligence. Now, I mean, instead of going into what it says, obviously there's some confusion about Axis Bank's role as a trustee and creating debentures and the security against debentures. This is what an investment banker says to me, and I think that just sort of encapsulates what this 44,000 number is all about. He says, this scams breaking seems to be written by someone with little or no knowledge of security creation, modification and current outstanding charges. He has just aggregated everything, claimed 44,000 crore exposure of Axis Bank. He doesn't seem to understand the concept of lead bank holding charge for consortium or trustee holding charge for debenture holders, or even modification of the same charges seem alien to the writer. Well, Axis Bank is big enough to take it up on its own. The good news is at least there wasn't a run on the deposits because it issued a denial. And let's see what it does. SRE, there is an update. I'll show you the link on this video blog. They say they've lodged a police complaint, God knows against whom. But like I said, it is more credible to believe that there may be something wrong. Where SRE is concerned, even the rating agency CARE has put SRE Infrastructure Finance on credit watch with a negative outlook, because it's talking about some kind of scheme of arrangement, a slump exchange between two of its companies. Now, the point that I come to is that why does all this sound believable? Why does it create so much of a storm on social media? Because we have invariably been caught by surprise by infrastructure leasing and financial services. Don't forget that this, until it collapsed, a lot of people believed was a government organization, because it was packed with retired IAS officers and it had joint ventures with government companies. In fact, the day the board was sacked and the government took it over, the government of India, the Ministry of Company Affairs, didn't even know how many companies it had. The press release talked about 169 companies when it had 347 entities, some of them stepped down subsidiaries, right? So truth is always stranger than fiction. Who would have thought that such a large group would be flying under the radar? But it did. Now, look at Diwan Housing. I mean, the less said, the better. If this video blog and my column broke the story that 20,000 crores had been siphoned off, that's what a forensic audit had found, and nobody even knew about it. Then they talked about box companies. Then it turns out they had something called the Bandra entities, which is complete fiction. They pretended there were people who were borrowing and money was just siphoned off through them, and all this was just kept out of the main core banking or core NBFC software. Don't forget, all these, whether it's IL&FS, DHFL, or even some of the SRE companies, are called systemically important companies, which means they're supposed to be under tighter scrutiny by the RBI. The RBI was scrutinizing IL&FS, RBI was sleeping when DHFL happened. It's now ordered an audit, but scams baking would have you believe that they've been faster. Now, if all this wasn't bad enough, what is even more scandalous is that the siphoning has been happening while the promoters apparently have the money stashed away. So in DHFL, the Vadavans are sitting in jail and are extremely active in the bankruptcy proceedings. So they are making allegations against somebody who's trying to get his money back, which is 63 moons, and they have now apparently said, we will pay back, we'll pay 9,000 crore upfront, pay back 100% of the principal over 7 to 8 years. Now, this is a bit of a joke, because you're sitting in jail, you've created a problem, you've not paid your debenture holders, you have the temerity to make even an offer like this. That means you still have 9,000 crores stashed away, when every government agency, from the CBI to the Enforcement Directorate to the DRI and the Economic Offences Wing, is ostensibly after this group. Are they even doing their job? I mean, if this is not truth being stranger than fiction, what is? Then you have SR. Do you remember the last ditch attempt by the Rumours was to say we will pay back everybody with interest. If you had this money, why were you a willful defaulter? Nobody asked, nobody believed it. The sale has fortunately gone through after dragging and after innumerable court cases. So it creates for a very worrying situation. We are ready to believe things when they come out without checking the source too much, because our first reaction is nobody is there to protect us and our money. We have to protect ourselves, and that's a very prudent way to be. Instead of being cynical and disbelieving, one has to say, I will believe until proved otherwise, because in India, case after case, people have lost money. People thought money was safe, and Yes Bank bonds, it's gone. You had PMC Bank collapse overnight. If I were you and it was my money, I would first react and think afterwards and say, okay, let the regulators sleepily do their job. When they prove otherwise, I will wake up. This does not make for a safe market. This is something that regulators and the government need to worry about. At the moment, we are, as they would say in Hindi, Bhagwan Bharose, because the government doesn't seem to care. Let us take care of ourselves, right? If you like what we said, please share, please subscribe, and tell others about it, because we help to keep your money safe. Thank you.